Welcome to the Decode. This is Rev 1.19, our special year-end season in review, all one huge extravaganza. So our usual band of misfits without any extra guests this week. Myself, Daniel Stanfield, process engineer at Aurora Boardworks.
Elias Malfavon with Metal Edge Services.
Sean Kincaid with K&F Electronics.
So this episode, we kind of just wanted to do a nice recap of what we did this Rev and give a shout out to some of the people who helped make it happen. So I thought probably the first area we would start would be some favorite moments from the season. So I'll go ahead and start. My favorite moment, one of them anyway, was when we first brought in our first guest, right? Because when we first started, we didn't know what we were going to do. Are we going to have guests? Are we not? Are we going to record on video? Are we just going to do audio? Like, we really had no clue what we were doing. We did a few on our own and then decided, well, I guess let's give it a shot. And I know I speak for all of us, but we were pretty nervous when it came to actually having our first guest on. And I don't think we could have done better than Alex Norman. He was awesome. He brought a great energy. He had a great setup, better than any of our setups. He's got a super professional recording setup. And he brought a lot of knowledge, matched our energy, brought exactly what we were looking for. And I think for me, it solidified the idea of a podcast in general, but also the idea of having guests. So that's kind of one of my favorite shining moments of the year.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, I think the great thing about Alex was, he was a guest that carried his own water and probably a little bit of ours that early on, right? So
No doubt.
that was, he was definitely a very easy entrance into the guest world. And that was still one of our better episodes of the season and likely not the last time you see Alex on.
Sure.
Yeah. And the dude had better equipment than we had, right? We thought like, it's going to be 30 minutes or whatever. We went 2 hours and we're like, is anybody going to watch a 2-hour episode, And it was kind of, it just turned
And that was just what we recorded, right? We talked for him for a while after we even finished.
Yeah, perfect guess. Good call. Yeah, and that kind of brings me to my point is when producer Paul came on, right? Like he took all that heavy editing that I had to do and allowed me to just be a pretty face and come on here and smile and dance around in Macho Man attire and wear king hats and stuff like that. So definitely producer Paul, Daniel's brother, has been my shining moment. And I think the best part is like he keeps our brains into actually like let's work and talk about this stuff. He doesn't just let us, because we tend to go off into random subjects and just randomness. And at least now
those happened about the same time, right? Or like about the same time we had our first guest was about the time Paul joined. And man, feels like if he wouldn't have joined, there's just no chance. We would not have been able to stay on track and keep our momentum. We would have been missing episodes because we wouldn't have gotten to the editing on time, and we just would have been a train wreck without him. So I can certainly second that submission there. Elias, you have any thoughts on Paul?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I hadn't had the thought that those two things kind of occurred at the same time, our first guest and producer Paul coming on board, but I'll just kind of echo more of the same. He's kind of our guiding light and keeps the ship on course, if you will. I like his work style and his organization. That really resonates with me. So yeah, I don't think we're recording this episode, sans the addition of producer Paul. We're probably mad at each other and, taking shots at each other on LinkedIn or something.
Sure.
Maybe not that drastic.
What was your submission then, Elias?
Mine was the SMTA experience in general, but specifically our live recordings. I think that was just a really great moment. The three of us being together in the same place for the first time and then being able to record without, camera delay or microphone issues or whatever the case, and being able to really feed off each other's energies in the room, feed off producer Paul's reactions off camera and silently. It was just a great experience, and being together as a cast for the first time and out in a pretty public eye on the show floor of SMTAI and seeing how people received us and the awareness that there was for the cast, right? We're always looking at these metrics and how many listeners there are and how many impressions our posts are, but being around real people and getting real reception, that was motivating, inspiring, kind of really added some gas to the tank. Like, yeah, let's keep going with this. This is kind of working out. So that was my choice.
I can certainly, I mean, that's a great submission. One of the ways I would equate it is, two of the major media entities that are at all these trade shows, What's New in Electronics, right? And Global SMT TV, I think it is, with Trevor Galbraith. So both of those entities, it's not like I consume every single interview that either one of them does, right? But I'm super aware that they are at every show. They have this huge presence. Everyone knows about them. And that was actually surprising to get that same kind of response ourselves, to have so many people say like, wow, I've been noticing how much traction you guys are getting. Like, I haven't had a chance to listen myself quite yet, but I can't believe how much I'm seeing. Like, people are enjoying it and you're making noise. I heard that from many people, or just that our LinkedIn posts are at the top of their feed as soon as they log in, like, we're definitely making noise. And that's kind of one of the objectives we had, was to be able to connect different groups of people and to actually see that firsthand that it's happening. That was cool. And obviously to get to hang out together, have a good time, record in person. There was a lot of fun there. So I think great submission for sure. Sean, any thoughts there?
SMTA was awesome, man. It was like you guys said, it was weird that when we met in person that there wasn't any awkwardness. I felt like there was going to be, but there really wasn't. It was like, hey, how you doing? Right? It was just kind of like, I've known you forever. And that was really cool. And like you guys are saying, just meeting all the people there, the people you look up to, and talking to them and them giving you the time of day was just that little thing of someone you look up to giving you the time of day goes such a long way when you're starting out. It really does. And it was a great choice, Elias.
Thank you.
So beyond what we all enjoyed from last season, I think we should also talk about what our goals are for next season. So I'll go ahead and start. One of my big goals, kind of piggybacking on what Elias just said, was to attend more of these shows. I want to do as many of these shows as we possibly can as a group, because when we were in the room with some of these people, you can't duplicate that without being there. You can't replicate that energy, that connection, that face-to-face interaction. And I think if we can get together, our energy when we're live and in the same room, that's hard to match also. And just to get to the point where people are used to seeing us at these shows and wanting to interact with us because they know we're going to be there. Like, that's kind of a big goal of mine. So I'd like to be able to attend Apex, SMTAI, maybe a couple other big ones. We've got something pretty cool planned, a few different pretty cool things that are planned for the next season. So really looking forward to being able to unveil some of those exciting things we get to do in Rev 2. So that's my submission. Elias, any thoughts on attending those events as a pod next year?
Yeah, I think what I really enjoyed about SMTAI and what we could replicate at other events this year is just kind of the solidification of these relationships that we've started either on the cast or on LinkedIn. And it's kind of a nice thing to go into meeting somebody in person, having already had some interaction with them digitally, if nothing else. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. I think that's a great submission.
Sure. If I had never had any digital interaction with Chris Shea, it would have been really weird when she threw a beach ball at my head when I was introduced to her at SMTAI. So it's good to have somewhat of a starting point, right? Before, Sean, do you have any plans on joining us as a pod in 2025? Or are you just going to be kind of intentionally aloof and
All depends on my daughter, man. If she can get healthy into a normal sleep cycle, my wife can bounce back and then be able to be more comfortable having two under two underneath the house running around. And yeah, it's just gonna take time. I really think that thing that's we talked about today in May, I don't see why that wouldn't happen. Right? That's gonna be awesome. That's gonna be so cool. I'm excited for that. I really am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little tease. So, Elias, do you have any goals for 2025?
I want more people to hear us. I think we've been working on this for several months now. And if you look and listen to where we first started to where we are now, with the addition of some quality guests and producer Paul, feel like we're putting out a pretty decent product that people will enjoy. So I hope for more listeners, and try not to get caught up in the metrics, right? Put out a good product, put out interesting conversation, and let that be good enough. But it's tough to not have something as a goalpost or as a metric. So that number for me is I'd like to see 1,000 people listening to each episode. That's my 2025 goal.
That's a huge goal. I would absolutely love if we could get there. I mean, if you look at what our average is, I mean, that would be probably going by a factor of 8 or 9 of what we have averaged per total listening per episode, whatever you want to say. So that would be a huge jump and a great gain from Rev 1 to Rev 2, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility by any stretch. So,
and it wouldn't be the first lofty ambition I've pitched to you that ended up coming true.
That's true. No doubt about that. And I was super happy to be proven wrong that time. So I'll be really even more happy maybe to be proven wrong on this occasion if we're able to hit that number. So I would love to see that. I think it's a great point that we don't want to focus, on nothing but driving the numbers up, because if that's what our sole focus is, then we'll lose touch with what we intended to do with this in the first place. But doing this is fun for all of us, and growing the reach of it should only make it even more fun, because the conversations get richer the more people that join the conversation, right? It gets
Absolutely.
more, you get more opinions, more experience. It's just, I've really enjoyed seeing the network that we have accumulated combined, and the type of discussions that we're able to generate, and the amount of knowledge I've learned simply from, silly little posts that we do, and then the comment section and everything that happens thereafter. So I think it's a great goal. Sean, any comments on Elias's goal?
We could always pay for ads like our competition does. Little pay per click.
Shots fired.
2,000.
We want everything to be real.
2,000 views, and they got 5 likes. Okay,
there's nothing wrong with that. All right, so yeah, I hear you. Authenticity, sure.
Yeah,
right?
brother. Organic.
We want it to be real.
Organic.
I'd rather have 100 real clicks than 1,000 fake ones all day.
Absolutely.
All right, Sean, any goals you want to share for Rev 2 and 2025?
Well, I feel like part of the way we could drive some of that engagement is have special episodes where we actually solve a problem for people. So we come on and, whether it's a PCB design guy and they're trying to, hey, I had this signal integrity issue and this is what I did with this. Or it's a PCB fab guy and they're having a problem with, outer layers or inner layers, something like that. Or it's a PCB assembly guy and they have some type of issue with billboarding or reflow, and then they come in and they teach us, right? Like real quick, short, anywhere from like 5 to 15 minute episode, maybe 30 minute if it's a big topic, but little short clips of, hey, this is how we solve this problem, and then we'll learn from it and we'll grow from it. And hopefully our audience is looking for, little how-tos like that, or wow, I never thought about doing that before.
I think that's kind of what Bill Capon was recommending to us when he was kind of coaching us up on what he thinks would make a good podcast, right? Actually be a solution, a place that people can look to solve their problems that they're having in assembly. And one of the things we've talked about is some of this stuff just seems so commonplace to us that we don't realize the value it has in sharing it with other people. It may be what we see every day, Sean, but other people might not be used to seeing that. Or when they've come across it, they don't know how to deal with it because it doesn't happen often enough for them to have come up with a good solution. So the conversations that we have privately that we're trying to figure out how to bring to the air and have a podcast around, we should be focusing on that and creating our content around that, which I like that idea. Like, for example, just this last week, I had an assembly where there was a bottom terminated component that was having a hard time in reflow. The one side would reflow good and the other side wouldn't. So we were using the jet printer and we could make adjustments. So we'd make an adjustment to the left side and then it would look good, but the right side no longer would. And so then you'd add volume to the right side and now the left side didn't look good. And we ended up having to completely reduce the volume back down, but change the shapes overall, like increase the length on the leads and change the shape on the thermal pad. And just the volume was actually reduced quite a bit from where we were still failing to see sufficient solder on both sides. But with the proper strategy in the end, totally eliminated all the problems and saw great connection all the way around. So I think we could include pictures of problems like that, talk about how we stumbled upon them, what our process was in working through the solution, and what the end result was. And I think if we do that on a consistent basis in all the different branches of assembly, I think that would have a lot of value for everyone in the community, whether they're in assembly or design or fab or anything. And so I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I also think there's benefit to just having a few different formats, right? Different strokes for different folks. So somebody may need that real long episode. That's what they're after. They've got, a couple hour commute going to visit a customer and they really appreciate those long form episodes. Somebody else may, want a 20 or 25 or 30-minute episode that they can just listen to on their regular commute to work. So I think that's where we really encourage the listening audience to give us your feedback. We want to hear from you. Let us know, do you like the 2-hour episode? Do you like the 30-minute episode? Do you like this topic? Do you not like that topic? If you needed an invitation, please accept this as my formal invitation, our formal invitation. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know how we're doing. We want to hear it. So please feel free.
Yeah. Well, I think that's been great. So how about we go ahead and put a wrap on our wrap up and say thank you to all of our guests for the season. We'll give them the shout out here and tag them in a post to say thanks and hopefully drive some attention to their profiles to say thank you. We couldn't have done it without you. So a shout out to Alex Norman, Mike Conrad, Kathy Rennie, Peter Dorjak, Caleb Chenoweth, Jordan Danko, Chris Shea, Bill Capin, Tony Kelbert, David Krudhoff, and not a guest, but somebody who's been super influential in all of our LinkedIn content and our development professionally and personally. I'd say Orak, you know who you are, so thank you. And then I'll also say a personal thank you to Jacob New. And it's definitely personal because he doesn't even have a LinkedIn profile, and I'll gain absolutely nothing from this shout out. So this really undeserved shout out, and it's already taken up too much time. And also I will thank Aurora Boardworks for being super supportive of me doing this. It would be a lot more difficult if this was something they didn't want me to do. So thank you for all the support they give me. And also my wife, if Jesse wasn't willing to let me do this, then the support I'd get anywhere else wouldn't even really matter. So the fact that she's willing to stay home and watch our two feral girls does a lot for our ability to do this podcast in general. So thank you to my lovely wife for supporting me in this venture. Elias, do you have anyone you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I'd like to thank my sister, Rachel Navarro. She generously lets me use for her backyard office every week. It's a nice, quiet place to record, and I'm not sure I could do this regularly without it. So thank you, Rachel. I'd like to thank Metal Edge Services, my company, for supporting me in our travels and the equipment that I'm using very important to what I'm doing and what we're doing. And then lastly, my wife, because it's hours every single week that I'm not home that I'm supposed to be, and somebody has to pick up the slack for that, and it's always her. So Becca, thank you for the support.
Sean, go ahead.
Shout out to my wife. Thank you so much for, putting the kids to bed while I'm down here with these jamokes, and we're having fun and laughing and talking and dealing with me coming back in bed at 11:30 at night and eating dinner because these guys don't care about the Eastern time zone. And, thank you to K&F Electronics, really just the employees, right? Because what you guys don't see is you will have a magic clip and I'll make them all watch it and I'll like stare at their face while they're reviewing it. And I'm like, all right, I was a random person going to react to this, right? So thank you guys for putting up with all my nonsense, right? Yeah, that's all I got.
So we went ahead and thanked him as a guest, but I also think Mike Conrad deserves another special shout out because he really mentored all of us in the space before we even had the bravery to start. So if it wouldn't have been for him, I know at a minimum, it would have taken us longer to get started and the quality from the jump would have been worse. And it would have taken a lot longer for us to find any kind of footing at all. So the confidence and knowledge he shared with us before we even got started and his willingness to come on as a guest early on into the venture, his willingness to help anytime we have a question. It's just, he's been a huge mentor to all of us and really grateful to him for his willingness to help us with everything we've been doing. Big shout out to the SMTA and IPC for their willingness to be involved in the things that we're doing. And we want to thank everyone on LinkedIn who's been willing to support us, share, and promote our podcast. We wouldn't be doing this without you guys. So thank you so much for listening and playing along. It means a lot to all of us. So thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for everything you've done for us in Rev 1. And we hope to see you again in Rev 2. Happy holidays. Till next time.